Hello friends, welcome back to your channel. This is your host Aniket Samant, and today we have a very special guest. I think today's guest does not need any introduction, especially if you are a student preparing for entrance exams, MBA entrance exams in India. Then I don't think there is any person who does not know his name. He is an JBIMS alumni himself, topped the CAT and CET and other entrance exam on multiple occasions. He also has an academy of his own called as Coin Academy and helped lot of students, including me, to get into prestigious institutions in India and abroad. Welcome, sir. I present before you Mr. Patrick D'Souza, popularly known as Patrick, sir. Hello, sir. How are you?
Thanks,
welcome to our
Aniket.
channel.
Thanks for the introduction. Yeah.
Thank you. So first, sir, first question, sir. What's the trick? What's the trick that you have to crack the exam consistently for so many years, for like almost 2 decades? So what's the trick behind it? What is the recipe behind it?
There's no specific recipe. It's just that you know how to go. It's just that you know how to go about tackling the questions. The approach that is required to crack an aptitude examination like the entrance exam, including the CAT and the CET or the GMAT or the GRE, is to understand what you know the exam setter is looking at. A lot of people believe that they look at pure mathematics, but actually no, they don't test you on mathematics. The key is that it tests you on either logical ability or quick thinking, and that is the key. A lot of people believe that okay, if I mug up too many formulas or if I know a lot of things, I'll be able to crack the exam. But that is not true. The key is to understand what they're trying to test you on and accordingly prepare for the same.
Okay. But sir, have you seen any sort of transition? I mean, you have been giving this different entrance competitive exams since like 2 decades. So have you seen any sort of changes in the sort of questions arc or pattern or the type of evaluation of student that has been done in these exams?
Yes, there has been changes as far as the CAT exam is concerned. So I'm mainly trained for the CAT exam, even the GMAT and the other exams as well. So there has been a small changes. For example, the CAT used to be, if you look at maybe 20 years back, speed-based test. I mean, the way CET is there now. I mean, they used to have 200 questions and whatever, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and then try to solve. So it was more based on speed. That's what they should check. From there, they've evolved itself to be more of a logical based exam where you need to think per question. So from a time where each question had hardly 45 seconds to a time where each question now has almost 3 minutes is what the difference is. So based on that, even the way the questions are framed also has changed. Even for that matter, even the English section, when they used to check, I mean, long time back with regards to grammar and vocabulary to some extent, but today they mainly check on your understanding of what you read, because that's what they look at. I mean, let's try to understand what do MBA need the most. They need to understand what they look at. They need to make decisions quickly. They need to think logically, solve the problem, and that is what the recent trend has been in terms of trying to test students on.
Right. And now most of the exams have transitioned from a paper-based exam to online exam. I think I don't know the current scenario, but when I took a lot of exams like CAT and MAT and other exams transition from online to an online platform. So what do you think, what has changed like when an exam moves to an online platform? I mean, exams like GRE, GMAT have been taken online since a long time. So what do you think, what is the essential difference when the exam is offline and when it's online?
To be very frank, there is no major difference in the content. But yes, if I look at a CAT per se, one thing that definitely changes when you have go to online is the surprise factor is reduced. I mean, when it was an offline paper, they could surprise you a lot. I mean, you didn't know whether it was a 2-section paper or 4-section paper or 3-section paper until you must start for the exam. You didn't know how many questions you should come each section. There should be a lot of surprise factors. Certainly you'd see in one of the examination that logic and verbal have been combined or something else. But now when it's gone online, they can't have that surprise factor. They have to inform you beforehand that how many sections are there.
Right.
And they will have to inform you before. And the surprise factor to some extent is gone. There is surprise factor in terms of difficulty level, etc. But the major surprise factor in terms of number of questions and the number of sections, etc., has reduced. So
Right.
because of which, the challenge I would say is not so much as of now. But
Okay.
yes, in terms of type of questions and how they are framed, it remains the same.
Okay. And it's not only about exams, but due to this COVID times as well, lot of transformation has been like, I would say, accelerated. It was already there, but it has been accelerated due to this. And now even the coaching and even the sort of educational institutes are like, and even schools and other institutions are offering their programs online and conducting their own programs online, which traditionally used to be a classroom based. So what changes or challenges do you see in this new format, and like what is your opinion on the same?
Technology will adapt to the whatever scenario is faced. So COVID-19 is bringing in new scenarios.
Mhm,
So if you look at the recent trend has been to conduct examination at home. I think GRE is already adapted to it. A lot of entrance examination in India, specifically the one after 12th, are
mhm,
already conducting the test at home. I mean, you can sit at home and write a test. I
mhm,
mean, there's Ashoka, there is NMAT. NMAT is actually for the 12th standard. It's actually
mhm,
conducted by GMAC,
mhm,
and they have also experimented and conducted at home.
mhm,
Right now, yes, the technology is a little hazy. People are facing some problems with regards to technology, but I'm sure they will, bridge that gap and make it much better in terms of the interface and everything else. So yes, what is happening of late is because of this. If you're looking at very specifically the COVID-19 situation, they are getting into technology where people can write the examination at home and go up. But there are always that positives and negatives. So when you do that, there is a digital divide which will always be there. There will be people who will have access to technology. There will have people who will not have access to technology. So people who are not used to it and who have not access to technology or a good environment at home where they can sit and write the test, they will surely face some problem with regards to writing the test, etc. So
right,
that will have to be ironed out over a period of time, and I'm sure they will come up with some solutions.
sure. So it's I think one of the important aspect here is that though online, because of the video, I think we can even now have solved this sort of personal touch aspect of it. But with online, you can reach a wider audience. So when it comes to say teaching, you can reach a wider audience. So what's your take on that? I think that's a plus, right? Even though some constraints of internet and as you mentioned, like the reach, wherein if you are able to read the remotest part, etc. But with internet being becoming accessible, I think isn't that a good thing that is happening?
There will be always positives and negatives. Yes, the positive is that you reach a lot of people. Yes, I mean, today, if you look at my audience in terms of students are across India, so I don't have to look
Yeah,
at only Mumbai based on my classroom,
correct.
but it's across India. I have been having online from last 5 years, but yes, now because of COVID-19, we have to more focus on online and therefore I can reach across.
Mhm,
But yes, what I've also seen is there is a little negativity also with regards to it. Now that personal touch is gone. I mean, I
mhm.
remember at least the last year students when we still talk or when we interact, or as I interact with you, we know each other so well, and the bonding is still there. I
Yeah,
mean, even after so many years, that personal touch is, I mean,
yeah,
little out because I have not seen the students. Yes, I will be interacting with them more and more as and when we get closer to the exam, but I'm not sure in the online medium we can build a strong bond the way
right,
we used to build offline. So that bonding is little off. But yes, what you say, one thing is right, that I can reach. I mean, now the reach is much big, much more. Also, the students now can access any good teacher from across the country instead of only focusing on the class which is near them. So both way there is obviously a little positive and a little negative. So we
yeah,
need to work on that.
sure. So you talked about GRE and other things. You also mentor students on applications to institutions abroad and help them get admitted there. So what is the essential difference between a PG program in India and abroad? And if you could just briefly tell us about the merits and demerits of the both.
So very frankly, the let me focus on the MBA exam as such. So
Mhm.
the MBA course in India and maybe abroad is quite different in terms of how they are taught. I mean, let me just put this that way. Now, in India, when they teach, the focus is teaching a lot of things, but at a narrow, shallow pace. I mean, they don't go in depth. They
Mhm.
teach a lot of things. I mean, you learn about everything which is there in the course, everything on marketing, everything on finance, everything is put in the course. The course is so vast and everything is there in the course, but it is very shallow in terms of they don't reach the depth which is there.
Mhm.
But when you go abroad for the MBA course, at least the most of the good B schools, they teach you few things,
Mhm.
but they go into depth. Okay, so
Mhm.
everything gone in depth. For example, therefore they have that requirement of saying that you need a work ex to get into a
Right.
B school abroad. So
Mhm.
what's the advantage of that? So when they have a case study approach, so there will be someone who has worked on that particular industry, and then they can discuss their experience on that industry to everyone else. So suppose there's an automobile case study, and I have worked in an automobile industry maybe in 2 or 3 countries, and I
Mhm.
know how automobile industry works. I can share my experience with everyone else, and then we can go in that whole case study in depth,
Right.
which in India may not happen because the most of the people who get into a B school may not have good work ex or may not have work ex at all. So in
Mhm.
that case, discussing in depth as to what is happening in the industry becomes a little difficult as such. So yes, that is obviously the way the education system is based in India and abroad. Both have its merits and demerits. I'm not saying that the US MBA system is better in India. I'm not putting on that, but I'm just saying that this is a basic difference between the education system between the
Mhm.
US and the India. And one thing that makes the difference is because the way the education system is, the way the intake of students are in the college, and what they focus on.
Okay, fine. So it's more about the experience and sort of the would diversity with the right word, like diverse experience that come into the batch and those exchange of experiences along with the experience that they have in their professional life. So
Yes.
yeah, you
Look,
wanted.
no, I guess one more reason for that also is the opportunities that you are maybe the for abroad you get after your graduation is much better than what you get from an Indian graduate. I mean, if I'm a graduate maybe from a US or a Europe college, I would get a lot of good opportunities to work for in the
Mhm.
field that I want. But
Right.
if I'm passed out of Indian graduation system, and I may end up maybe as accounting or some other work which may not at all be relevant in terms of you're talking about management. So
Right.
that is one reason why there's not a lot of emphasis given in India for the experience, whereas abroad they do give emphasis for experience.
Right. So this is about once you get admitted and about the experience afterwards. But what before you get admitted? Like, is there any inherent difference in the sort of entrance examinations or sort of evaluation what that these exams do? Like, for example, let us take an example of say CAT and GMAT. So, is there any inherent difference on which they evaluate the students while taking while having their intake?
I think over a period of time, whatever the evaluation has bridged, I'm not saying no,
Mhm.
but yes, there is still that small differences which are there because in abroad, if you take students for admission, there's less emphasis given on your entrance examination and more emphasis given on the extracurricular activities.
Mhm.
In India, I mean, you don't have to be all rounder to get into a college.
Mhm.
Okay, if you're good, excel in the entrance examination, and you're good academically, you can definitely get into a college. I mean, that's how. So
Right.
normally in abroad, when they take you, they will look at okay, have you done something in NGO activity or something on music or something on some other activities? How have you
Mhm.
divided your time on a lot of extracurricular activities, etc.
Mhm.
And apart from education, apart from your books, so they look at what else have you done.
Right.
India, not so much. I mean, if you look at the entrance examination, they look at your 10 stand marks, 12 stand
Mhm.
marks, entrance exam marks. Okay, you have scored so much, we'll give you a call.
Mhm.
Once they give you a call, they may give you a weightage for your, extracurricular activities, but it is a little subjective based on the panels, etc., which is
Right.
there. So yes, the emphasis on extracurricular is more abroad as compared to what it is in India.
Right. Okay. The other aspect about this is the cost of education. So over the years, we have seen the cost of educations for MBA exams have been increased like exorbitantly, right? So do you think, and this is one of the questions even I get asked many times from many juniors, and I think the same question may be asked to you also, that is an MBA really worth it spending so much? Like, what's your take on that?
It depends on the college you get into. So if I get into, let's say, one of the top colleges,
Mhm.
I will recover the money. So it is not an
Yeah.
issue on that aspect. So I know there will be initial 2, 3 years of struggle, but then I will recover the money. That's not a problem. In
Mhm.
abroad, foreign education, it's much more expensive.
Right.
So in that case, I am going to pay much more. I mean, and yes, but then I've seen that people are able to pay in a few years' time. So my brother-in-law is passed from Kellogg's.
Mhm.
Education fees is very high. He had to take a huge loan, but then he has repaid it by now. I mean, 5, 6 years from graduation, and then you repay back the money. That's fine because you earn that much. And same with India. I mean, it will take you maybe 4-5 years to repay the money, and once you repay the money, you're earning enough to pay back. The issue comes when a not so good college charges you very high.
Right.
So at that point of time, then you have to, think about it as, am I going to get that much salary after my graduation? And is it worth paying so much? Then you have to think on that. If a college is not offering you a good job, then there are question marks with regards to salary. But yes, most of the top colleges, I think the salaries are fine. The charge is fine because they're going to provide you that much service. And yes, anyway, you're going to earn that much. So there's no problem in paying a very high salary for a top college.
Right. So, sir, when you say about like this, definitely, I mean, I completely agree with that point. But how do you evaluate? Like, are there in 3-4 parameters? For example, when you talk about placements in India, most of the top tier B schools have a placement sales and offer placements after the end of the course. But I think it's not the same scenario abroad, wherein you need to go out into the market and try to search for a job through your networking or by other means, right? So, are there any 3-4 parameters on which you would like to advise our viewers on, like, okay, these are the 3-4 things that you should look into the college when you try to get admitted into it, or maybe this is how you can evaluate your options?
So if you're talking about fees aspect and evaluation of the college, then it's purely placements. I mean, then you look at how much placements I'll get after my job, and how much I'm paying for it. I mean, if you're looking at purely money, but normally that should not be the only criteria for you to take a college. I mean, ideally, I would look at what profile I would want to work in, and whether the profile that I want to work in, does the companies come into that campus, and can I get in? Well, that's how I would work. So that means if I'm looking at purely, let's say, marketing, then I look at those colleges where good marketing companies come for placements.
Right.
And I'll try to get into those companies. And same way, if I'm looking at investment banking, I'll look at whether companies on investment banking come to campus. There's no point getting into a college. I want to do investment banking, but no companies come on investment banking to campus. It'll be very difficult for me to get into outside the campus. So it'll be difficult. So yes, look at what is your interest level. So where your interest lies, where do you want to work, which sector, and based on that, maybe you can decide the college. But unfortunately, also the one more fact is that a lot of people in India are not very sure about which field they want to work in. I mean, they only go with lofty words like investment banking and consulting without knowing much about it. So in that case, whichever college is best in ranking and you feel have a good peer group would be a good college to join in.
Right. So it's also important from a student point of view to do this kind of background research on what they actually want to do before, like, maybe appearing for exams or maybe considering their or evaluating their options. Yeah. So other question is about the importance of soft skills in cracking this exam. Like you already mentioned in our discussions that in India it's majorly about cracking the exams. But what is the importance of the soft skills? Like let us not even go to the point after getting admitted, but before like cracking that exam. For cracking that exam, how important is our soft skills?
Look, I think soft skills are overrated. A lot of people feel that I need to be really fluent in speaking English and really good at everything before I want to get into college. No, that is the college work to groom you, and they will groom you for that. So it is not that you have to be really, really good at soft skills to get into a college. Let me put it this way. I mean, I have known introverts getting into college and doing really well and come out with a very good personality in terms of soft skills. Okay. But yes, what's expected of a student is that he's honest. I mean, any good college will always look at these qualities that are there. One is the person ready to work hard? Has he worked hard in the past, either in his graduation or any other activities? Is he passionate in whatever he's doing? Okay, and is he honest with his work? I mean, is he not? I mean, whatever is shown in his CV, whoever is he is being seen in a personality. That is what is important. Sometimes people mistake, getting into a college to these soft skills, saying that only if I'm well spoken and I can show off and I can be big in life, then only colleges will take you. And then they go in an interview, acting over smart. And that is a sure shot way of getting rejected in a college, because the college will always look at honest guy whom they can mold to how they want them to mold. If you come across a person who's really over smart, then there's a high chance that they would feel that I have nothing to teach him, so I should not take him. Remember, they are going to be your teachers, okay, and they would look at a teacher. I mean, he would not want someone who's really over smart in his class. He would want someone who's going to listen to him and mold you to get the best out of you in a class. And that is what is important as far as the quality of a student is concerned.
Right. Definitely. I mean, so as you rightly said, but what I want to also would like to delve deeper into that. So when you talk about any sort of entrance exams, there are these GDs and PIs, and this can be very apprehensive, sort of intimidating for some people, especially the GDs, wherein a lot of people are involved and you need to sort of make yourself heard. So what's your advice on that?
So that's the reason in most of the top B schools, they've removed the GDs completely.
Oh.
Now it is a VAT session. So now they have a written ability test and they have an interview.
Okay.
They understood that there was a problem in GDs, where when people come to GDs, the person who shouts the most who gets into it. And that time also they should always reject a person who shouts the most. That's always a bad way of starting a GD. But now the whole process has changed, where they say that let me not have a GD, let me not have this process. We'll have a VAT session where they write essay, put their thought process. I can evaluate a person based on what is written and have an interview. There are some colleges which do have a GD. I'm not saying no. GD case study is there, but there too, it is more the person who can, put in few good points is, valued more than a person who can speak a lot without any content.
Right.
So in that case, the content matters. The knowledge what you have and how you can put forward your knowledge, it matters.
Right. Especially in the Indian entrance scenario or education system, we have a lot of competition, right? And maybe you will find many people with a similar sort of profile or experience, or you can categorize them in that specific bucket. So how important is it to differentiate yourself from the crowd? And if you want to, like, what are the things that a person, or what from a evaluator, you also go as a guest faculty in many prestigious institutions, as well as you have mentored. So what are these from a teacher point of view, or from the evaluator point of view? What are the things that you look into pupils that differentiate them from others?
Differentiation becomes an extremely important factor in any phase of life. It's not only in terms of entrance examination, but also maybe after you pass out and when you're there. Because if you're one of the many, no one is going to give you importance. It's only when you differentiate yourself from others and act differently, that will what make you a unique candidate for them to select. Just to give you an example, I mean, we had a student who was there, and this is what we have done differently when we went about training. We normally train, I mean, ma'am trains students for interview as such. So we told people that bring out your difference in the interview. So there was one student who actually went to rap in his interviews, right from Ahmedabad, Bangalore, and Calcutta, all 3 interviews. He introduced himself with a rap. Obviously, he asked the permission and went about it. And he completely did beatboxing, rapping, and went about introducing himself. And he got selected. As a matter of fact, in IIM Bangalore, he also got scholarship for joining the college. I mean, that was amazing in terms of, I never heard of that happening before. So that means, I mean, they are looking at something which is different from me. So we have also had people whom we guided them in terms of trying to draw their whole story and showing in an interview, bringing out your qualities of drawing or something on that. So try to differentiate yourself. If you're going to go the same way like everyone does and talk about the same thing, I'm an engineer, I work for 4 years and I'm a software this one, where are you differentiating yourself with others? Doesn't make sense. So yes, it's very important not only to be different, but to portray that you're different in the interview, because a lot of people are different, but they're not able to portray that in the interview. So it's important to communicate to the panelists that I am a unique candidate with a unique set of strengths, which I bring out to the table.
Right. And this is where I was also in my earlier question, like I was talking about the soft skills. So even after you get selected, there may be some set of students who are not at privilege, or maybe not as fluent in English. They may have beautiful ideas, they may have very creative mind, but they are not able to express themselves articulately when it comes to expressing those ideas. So do you think due to lack of this skill, they may face any problem after getting admitted?
What happens in most of the students, what happens is in the college education that is there in management, There are so many presentations which are there.
Mhm.
So you eventually come on a stage and keep on speaking in the front of a group.
Mhm.
And the moment you get used to it, you automatically get used to it. That's what I feel. There very rarely any person who, after coming on a stage 10 times, have not got used to it.
Right.
So the advantage of being an MBA course or anything else is that you're on the stage so many times that it helps you to, communicate in a sense much better over a period of time. So you first time maybe you're shy, second time you're shy, third time you're shy, but you do it 10 times across one semester, you already got used to it.
Right.
Then you'll again do 10 times the next semester, you're good at it. So you
Right.
automatically improve. So over a period of time, that presentation skills and all, it definitely helps you to improve as a person in terms of how you communicate. Yes, there could be rarely some person who may still find a problem, but I am sure that the management education itself grooms you to be a better person. As a matter of fact, in some of the foreign universities, they also have, recording of your clips that you spoke, and they evaluate from a very professional people and then give you feedback regarding how has been your presentation been and how can you improve on your presentation, what else can you do.
Right.
There have been cases and giving a lot of emphasis for this. So yes, I'm sure the college will give a lot of emphasis for soft skills, because tomorrow when you go into industry, soft skills plays a very important role,
Yeah.
and they groom you to some extent in terms of improving your soft skills.
Right. So when it comes to preparation for exams, putting in the effort, studying, and all those things, that's a given. I mean, that's given for everyone. But apart from this, what are the other things that you would advise the students to do apart from the regular work that could help them in the examinations?
Uh, Okay, help in the examination, never give up. That's all I would say. A lot of people start preparing for the exam, somewhere, get down. It's very common for a person not to study one day and then say, oh, I'm not studied, and then give up. It's very common for people not to study a few days. But the key is to get up and keep studying. I mean, if your mock scores goes down, not to give up, keep studying, not to give up completely, and keep till the examination. That's one aspect which is very important. Second thing is develop a hobby. I mean, the hobby definitely helps you not only maybe keeping your mind calm in the stressful situation of the examination, but also may help you in your interview when you want to portray yourself to be different. So a lot of interviews are based on hobby. They want to see how passionate are you with regards to your hobby. So cultivating a good hobby definitely helps you with regards to keeping calm as well as preparing. Reading habit is obviously very important. The most
Right.
important part of any aptitude exam preparation, especially CAT, is that you have to be well read. Read a
Right.
lot,
Right.
because that gives you diversity in reading. So reading else also helps.
Yeah. And I think when you say reading, it's about actual reading and not about what sort of posts we get on social media. So it should be actual reading, I think, because
Actual proper reading.
yeah. And then I just want to ask the final question regarding what is your final advice to viewers, or like any sort of opinion that you would like to share at the end of this discussion?
Uh, Look, everything, I believe one thing is for sure, everything happens for the best.
Mhm.
Now, once you have decided what you want to do, give it a best try.
Mhm.
So you may get in, you may not get in, as a different matter. It's
Mhm.
important that you give it your best shot. I've seen people, even if they don't make it to good B school, somewhere in their life, that effort that they put in helps them in the future. I mean, maybe in a different line, in a different place. What is important is that you need to be passionate about whatever you want to do
Right.
and go forward and go about doing it. So basically, everything happens for the best, and never give up on whatever you want to do. That's how you can.
Sure. Thank you, sir. I mean, that was really valuable advice, and I think definitely the viewers will definitely gain a lot from that. Uh, I'd like to personally thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us and have such a good conversation. And it's always good to have this conversation with you, uh, and coming with such set of advice to our people, to our students as well as viewers. So thank you so much for all of that.
Thanks, Aniket. Thanks for calling me and giving me the opportunity to get my views forward. Thanks.
Sure, sure. Thanks a lot, sir.